Got a pellet. Hey, welcome back everybody. If you're new here, my name's Kurt. If you've been following us for a while, thanks for stopping back by. Today's topic is one that most people probably haven't heard of, but you should know about it. That is choke creep. It's a real thing, and it happens to a lot of shotguns, a lot of chokes in shotguns. Most of the time, it is caused by steel. However, if you shoot a lot, you'll see it happen with whether you're shooting, bismuth or lead or whatever. Get a lot of rounds through there, and I'm not talking a couple hundred. In most cases, I'm talking thousands of rounds with the softer materials. Now, steel, it can happen faster. And there's some things with steel shot and choke tubes where you can make it happen in just a couple of shots. In my hand, I'm holding a Benelli choke tube, and it says right on here, this is a factory choke tube, steel shot, okay. Right on, we're gonna go duck hunting. And we, a lot of people shoot steel, lots of people. I personally shoot bismuth, but a lot of friends of mine that I hunt with shoot steel. And it's okay, there's nothing wrong with steel shot. But here's where things get a little weird. A lot of aftermarket choke tube companies, and even some factory choke tube companies say, yeah, steel is okay, but only, nothing larger than like number 4 shot, or it could be number 2 shot. And you really need to do your homework, what shotgun do you use, what choke are you using, and find out either from the factory or the aftermarket company, whoever is building the choke tube, is there a limitation on what I can put through that, that choke? So I do have some chokes where I can't shoot anything larger than a number 4 shot using steel. Here's what happens. You can't compress steel. It really hard to. And you take a choke that's a very thin walled, especially around the skirt. The skirt is the end that goes into the barrel. That choke, when you're trying to shove steel through it, can start to expand just a little bit. And it only takes a few thousandths to really start to deform that thing. It doesn't take a lot. These are precision machined chokes, whether it's aftermarket or factory, it doesn't matter. When you ram steel through here at 1500 feet a second, you can't compress that shot very well, and it will cause the choke to just open up just a little bit. How do you tell if you've got choke creep? Chokes will not feel the same. So for instance, my Beretta here, I can just take this out, slides right in, there's no resistance, screws right in, seats right down, no problem at all. And I'll show you here in a second what a choke with some creep actually feels like. And this is a little bit of an extreme version, but you'll get the idea. Now, before we spin the camera around and get down here on the bench, it doesn't matter if you're buying a brand new choke tube or just shooting, maybe you got some brand new factory choke tubes with your brand new gun or whatever. It's always good to just make sure that they're always dropping in and screwing in without any resistance. You shouldn't have to fight choke tubes ever. If you do, you either have a problem with your barrel or your choke. If you do have a problem, you need to have somebody look at it. Don't assume it's the gun, don't assume it's the choke. Figure out what the problem actually is. You don't want to go out and buy a whole bunch of chokes and find out you got a barrel problem. That's just a waste of money. And I have seen plenty of barrel problems in my time. I've owned a few. And some of the guys I hunt with, they've seen it too. So with all that said, let's get on the bench here. I've got this barrel that Rhino sent me. And we put this on a mill and just cut this away so you can kind of see what we're talking about. And we'll go from there. So I've got a factory choke here. And this is a Rhino choke. It's unfinished, doesn't have the cap on the muzzle end of it yet, but let's start with just using the factory choke. Slides right in, and then you can start to screw this in, no problem at all. Not a barrel problem. Now take the factory choke. Now this should just slide right in, but it doesn't. It is stretched out. This is choke creep. Now, this is a little bit extreme, but it is quite hard to push in. Do I recommend shooting this? Nope. Go get yourself a new choke, whether it's a factory choke, aftermarket choke, doesn't matter, but get a different choke. So on the inside of the barrel here, there's a shelf, and you can feel this if you take a pick and just slide it down the barrel, you'll feel that shelf. It's right there. You don't have to use, you can use a plastic pick, whatever kind of pick you got is fine. Just don't gouge the barrel or anything, just use it gently. Don't need to put any pressure on it. When I'm cleaning my barrels, I come in here and I just put that pick tip right on that shelf and I just run this around. And all I'm trying to do is just knock off any little bits of carbon or wad buildup or anything in here that that could impede me getting a nice seat from the skirt of the choke down in to this area here where the skirt, which is this piece right here, comes down and meets up on the shelf down inside. That's where all the sealing and the transition happens. There, now that's got a real nice seal in there, and you can take I recommend just using a plastic pick. These are cheap. You can get them on Amazon. I'll link one below. They're excellent for cleaning stuff up, but you can run this down in here, put a little pressure up against the cylinder bore of the barrel, slide it up, and all you're going to feel is a little tick. And if you push it back down through the barrel, you should feel just a little bump right there. Feeling a little bit of a bump going down in the barrel is fine. If your pick hangs up for any reason coming out the barrel, now you can feel just a little bump there as you slide it out. That's fine. But it's not stopping the pick. If this were to stop the pick, so you can see the pick here sticking out, if it were to hang up on that, trying to pull this out of the barrel, then you got some bigger problems. That could mean that the barrel itself is bulged. It should slide right out with just the feeling of a real slight tick right there. It's nothing at all. Since we're showing you this here, I use this Shooter's Choice. It's a shotgun and choke tube cleaner, and I just spray this on my chokes, and then I take either a nylon or a bronze brush and I clean them all out. I use the nylon brush with the chokes removed from the shotgun to clean out in behind where the tubes sit in here, and they'll also clean up the threads in the barrel. And then you can spray that out with some quick scrub or something like that. Get all the gunk out of there. And my personal favorite to use for putting on a choke before you install it after everything's clean is just anti-seize. I think it works better than oils and greases. It stops the galling. The temperatures on this stuff is from negative 65 degrees Fahrenheit to 1600 degrees Fahrenheit. So really good stuff, and I found it to work the best. And it doesn't take much. On my choke tubes, once I have them all cleaned, I just put just a small dab on the threads, and that'll get all around inside there in the internal threads here, and it works great. So it doesn't matter if you're using a factory choke or an aftermarket choke. Like this particular one here is a Rhino Gen 2. It's a light mod. I use this all the time out in the hunting field just for ducks and stuff. More of a close range duck, 30 yards, 35 yards. I've shot them farther than that with this choke too, by the way. Great patterns. But this choke here, it should just drop right in, little anti-seize on the threads, screw it right down. Now, chokes will come loose, period. They're going to come loose. Whether you're doing sporting clays or trap or skeet, five stand, duck hunting, pheasant hunting, I don't care. They're going to come loose. Pick yourself up one of these tools here. This is for a 12 gauge. They make them for 20s and other things too. I'll link one of these below if you're looking for one. They're a great tool. It just slides in to the choke tube. This little screw here on top, this wing nut, you just tighten that down. And now you can tighten up your choke. What I like to do is I get it to where it just touches, the skirt just touches that shelf inside that we just talked about. And I give it just a quick little pop. Nothing hard. Unscrew this, slide your tool out, and that choke is tight. It's really hard for me to get it off of there. You can break it free with your hand, but it's pretty tough. It's also important to check that as you're shooting. So if it does come loose, tighten it back up, and the more often you check, the better off you're going to be. You don't want this to come loose, and then you start getting a bunch of shot, and you can get shot, you can get wad material in between the tube and the cylinder, and that will also cause some serious issues with choke tubes getting stuck. Now, one more thing. So there's a shoulder right here. You'll find this on any extended choke tube that I'm aware of. There's a shoulder here. This shoulder should not contact the muzzle of the barrel. The sealing happens here at the bottom of the skirt, not here. If this is bottoming out on your barrel, you're probably not seated properly. There have been some factory recalls on these, not these, but some factory chokes. There have been some recalls or some, well, what would you call them, technical service bulletins, as known in the automotive industry, that, hey, it's kind of a known problem, but we're not going to do anything unless you call us. And I have got replacement choke tubes that have had a problem before. And so make sure that this shoulder here on the tube is not making contact with the barrel. Make sure that there's a gap between here and your barrel. We want that seat on the skirt. So that wraps up part 3 of the choke series. There'll probably wind up being about 5 to 6 parts to this, so stick around. We've got another one coming for you. And thanks for joining us. We'll see you real soon.